Okay, again, today's discussion we're going to be looking at just the cell organelles that are responsible for energy conversions. That'd be the mitochondria and the chloroplast. We'll be spending a lot more time with these two structures when we study the actual processes of cell respiration and photosynthesis. Today we just want to give you a brief overview of the structures, what the organelle looks like, and the structures associated within those organelles. We'll start with the mitochondria. And the mitochondria, if you remember your freshman biology, is described as the powerhouse of the cell. I think all of us teachers here at Ralston, we had the matching situation part of the exam here. Powerhouse of the cell matched up to the mitochondria. It's called the powerhouse of the cell because here, this is the organelle that's going to break down glucose and make ATP out of it. And since most of the ATP is made within the mitochondria, it makes sense to compare it to a power plant of some sort. Now, the mitochondria, we could include this with that endomembrane system because in a lot of ways this is kind of like the endomembrane. It is a double membrane. It has an outer membrane and an inner membrane. The inner membrane is folded up into little folds called cristae. Okay? Now, look at my diagram over here. The mitochondria always kind of looks to me like a footprint. Okay? The outer membrane, nice and smooth. Inner membrane, and that's what this is showing right here. Here's a cutaway view, like cutting away the outer membrane and exposing the inner membrane. The inner membrane has all these folds. The folds are there to increase the surface area because right along here, that you're going to have all the proteins and enzymes associated with cell respiration. So more surface area because of the folds, more efficient cell respiration. Now this picture that you've got is showing both. This is from a photomicrograph. Again, you can make out the cristae, all the folds back and forth. This inside portion, right in here, is called the matrix. So you have the matrix and the inner membrane. And each one of these have different components of cell respiration tied to them. Okay, the mitochondrial matrix, again, should have exposed that a second ago, is all this space in between the folds. So again, right through here, this is part of the matrix, as is this part, every space between the folds. Now, one final point about the mitochondria is the fact that the mitochondria has its own DNA. Okay, mitochondria, the nucleus, and the next organelle we're going to look at, the chloroplast, all contain their own DNA. Biologists are using this as evidence to support evolution of cells, basically undergoing a symbiosis. Since mitochondria are about the same size as small prokaryotic cells, the theory is that early on in development, a larger cell, which eventually would evolve into the eukaryotic cells, formed a symbiotic relationship with a small protozoan, or excuse me, a small prokaryotic cell, which eventually became the mitochondria. So by symbiosis, we mean that the small prokaryotic cell, which may have evolved into the mitochondria, provided ATP for the larger cell, which provided the small prokaryotic cell with protection and a controlled environment. And over millions of years, this relationship evolved here to where you do get, a nice relationship where one helps the other. And again, the mitochondria with their own DNA, they do reproduce themselves during cell division. There's a stage here where they are going to replicate more mitochondria so it can divide between the cells. The chloroplast, again, that's the other structure here that has its own DNA. In your old biology textbooks, we emphasized here, these are like the carbohydrate factories. Now again, when we get into studying the process of photosynthesis, we're going to review these structures again. But basically the chloroplast, which looks kind of like this, this is the actual photomicrograph of the chloroplast. And what you're seeing here are the small individual sacs. Right here, stacks of these these are a bunch of little tiny sacs in here, all piled up on top of each other like quarters. These are called grana, G-R-A-N-A. Okay, grana are the stacks of these little coins, and the coins themselves are called thylakoids. Okay, thylakoids are stacked up into compartments called grana. So this chloroplast is still double membrane, just like the mitochondria. It's just that the inner membrane is all folded up into all these little compartments. This is where photosynthesis is going to occur. This is where you're going to have the large concentrations of the chlorophylls, and it's not just one chlorophyll, there's several in there, that are going to trap light energy and use that to combine carbon dioxide and water into the carbohydrates. And we always simply say it's glucose. Well, in this class you're going to learn that there's a step in between. It's not exactly glucose it's turned into. Eventually it's turned into glucose, but not directly.